the pressure to blurt out your opinions and theories and criticize what you don't think is working, the fear and anxiety of being challenged. Do you really have all the facts and details, planning and organizing for the future? These are all pressures and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for September 26th to October 2nd, 2025 bring. Hello there, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather, where we're looking at the planetary transits that can impact you, pulling you off track. However, if you're aware of them, you can sometimes use them to your advantage if it's correct for you. We have an incredibly busy cycle, lots and lots of channels being created. So let's just dive right in here. This cycle starts on September 22nd at 11:15 a.m., going until October 2nd at 4:41 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, that's coming in September 26th at 5:15 p.m., going until October 2nd at 10:41 a.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We're moving into two gates in awareness centers this cycle, and both are in the logic circuitry. So we'll have general themes of looking at patterns and planning for the future. These are collective gates. So we'll also have the theme of impersonal sharing of your awarenesses around what these traits bring. We have the sun moving into gate 18, the trait of correction, also called working on what was spoiled, which is in the Splenic Centre, the center that's associated with survival, health, and well-being. Its keynote says the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic and fundamental human rights. These collective circuits, they ultimately are about bettering things for humanity. This gate points at the trait of vitality, the trait of the joyous in the root center, and it brings an awareness of what is vital or not, what needs to be corrected in the collective, what's not working anymore. Logic is about finding those patterns to carry us into the future, but mutations happen. Patterns that were established don't work forever. So we've got to be able to look with that critical eye and be able to really come into awareness of what's not working. So it's a valuable trait here. If the correction is not going to bring you a sense of value, if it's not vital, you have to let it go. It's not worth your energy. This is a gate that's very critical. It criticizes with the viewpoint towards betterment of humanity. So expect a lot of criticism to be expressed this cycle. It's going to come out of you, potentially. It's going to come out of others. This trait brings the awareness potential to perfect the pattern via concentration. It's part of this circuitry. Logic is always trying to perfect the formula so that it's really reliable and we can trust it. If I do this, and this, I'm going to get this result every single time. At a biological level, this trait has to do with salt in the body, so that you may find that you're more sensitive to taste and saltiness, salinity this cycle. This is a trait that can challenge authority and sometimes can get people into trouble. People that have gate 18, if you've got this in your design, can sometimes protest and challenge in ways that do get them in trouble with the powers that be, because that's often who they're protesting against. And there's a fear of authority that's built into this trait. If the authorities don't have it right, they're going to lead us down a path that doesn't serve humanity and doesn't offer the betterment that's possible through the logic circuitry. The opportunities this trait brings is to see what needs to be corrected in the collective for that betterment, whether that's happening in the education system, the justice system, political system, whatever it might be, and whatever level, right? At the personal level, could be, the right way to hang the toilet paper is so that it comes over the top, and someone could believe the opposite, but this is what it's about, and it operates, again, at all different levels. The caution is that there can be a real wasting of time criticizing things that actually have no value at all. Although it's meant to look at the collective, this energy can turn to self-criticism or criticizing people around you that haven't asked for your input. Right? You should be rolling the toothpaste tube from the bottom. What are you doing? Okay. The fear of authority or challenge is also here, as I mentioned. And just a note that this trait can be very good at seeing the patterns that are not working, knowing what needs to be corrected, but in itself, it does not carry the solutions. That's in the gate 48, which comes after it and which we'll see next cycle. Gate 18 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 17, the gate of opinions in the Ajna Center. That's our mental awareness center associated with all the mind's activities like analyzing, conceptualizing, comparing, and so on, formulating in this case. Its keynote says the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. It's part of, again, the collective circuitry. So there's that impersonal sharing. But again, in its highest expression, it's towards the betterment of humanity, being of service. Only in service can you truly organize people and committees and whatever it might be in a way that does better humanity. That's true leadership. There are many times that you have a leader that says, this is the way to a secure future, and then ends up doing the opposite. It's not then in service to the collective. This trait brings the possibility to organize the formula, the pattern, the method, and prepare it for expression in its electromagnetic, gate 62 in the throat center, which we do have activated this cycle. So I'll talk about that more when we get to the channels. The channel themes always dominate over the gate themes. It's also the gate of the student and the teacher. You have to gather facts, and those will sometimes come from others. And you have to see the pattern. You have to be kind of a student studying the patterns. As you put all the facts together, you can then become the teacher and express the theory for others to take in and examine. There has to be a logical foundation. So your formula, your theory, your plan can withstand testing and criticism. Remember that this is just a theory at this point. It's the mental process. And others are going to take it and test it practically to see if it really holds up for the majority of people, the collective in the real world. Right? We've got lots of people putting out theories with facts or not, but it still has to be tested. It has to be proven. This is also the gate of the right eye, seeing the patterns in the now and then projecting them into the future. So is this a stable pattern? It's working now. Is it also going to work in the future? Does it stand up to the mental testing, first of all, in various conditions and contexts in which that way, that formula, that method could be used? This trait is rooted in openness to many stimuli, many inputs. You have to be open to all the different perspectives if you want to mentally test your theory, your opinion. You have to be open to being challenged so that your opinion can be refined, right? You've got to have a healthy ego because you're going to get feedback on it. In its detriment, there's actually a limiting of openness to just what is pleasing, being very narrow in what you have opinions in. The potential opportunities this activation brings is to be able to see patterns that perhaps you hadn't before, and to be able to develop your opinions on all sorts of things. It also brings the possibility to plan and organize for the future, and to be open to different perspectives. Now, In the polarity, there can be fear and anxiety around being challenged. Now, that can be motivating on one hand, right? To get your facts in order. I don't want to be challenged. Let me really delve into this and make sure I got things, all the facts, that they're organized. But it can also move you into mental overwhelm. The polarity of being very disorganized and refusing to take in different perspectives and potential formula could also play out here. So it's a real reminder, for me anyways, to watch our own confirmation biases. Our minds are wired to tend to only look at facts that back our opinions and to filter out the ones that go against your opinions. So we have to kind of let those go and be open to different perspectives. When we look at the Sun-Earth positions together, there's going to be that impersonal sharing of criticism and opinions that could create friction in relationships if it's taken personally or if you share without being invited to. All right, let's move on to our channels. When the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their design and their body graph is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So there's a learning that can go along with that. Now we have, as I mentioned before, a lot of channels this cycle. The transit field is incredibly busy. All right, so let's just delve into these. I'll try and be concise as I can in going through them. The first one comes in on September 26th at 11:15, going until October 2nd at 4:41 a.m. This is present through the whole cycle. Let's just do it that way. Because we have the electromagnetic of our Earth's position, gate 17, in the Ajna Centre that we just talked about. It's connected for the full cycle with its electromagnetic gate 62, the gate of details in the throat center, which is being activated by Jupiter. Together, they create the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. Of course, it's going to be part of the mental logic process, finding those patterns to carry us into the future. Acceptance of logic, when it talks about being the channel of acceptance, it's acceptance of logic. This is a channel where the theories, the opinions of gate 17 go through a process of getting all those details and facts in place to be able to substantiate those opinions and then to be able to also articulate them. It's activating the Ajna and the throat centers for everyone in the world that doesn't have it in their design. About 50% of you don't have the Ajna usually defined. So it's going to bring a busy mind, especially for those of you that don't have the Ajna center defined in your chart. The opportunities it brings is to really get into the details, to organize your facts, people, organize things, whatever you need to present or for yourself. If you got to organize your closet, organizing people and things is going to be a little enhancement of being able to do that in this cycle. Gate 62 is also really good at naming things. So if you have to name a project, a program, a thing, whatever it might be, this could be a really good time within this cycle to be able to do it. What you have to watch out for with this channel present, is anything that has a direct connection to the throat. There's always the potential for just blurting things out that haven't been invited. So expect that. Expect to see that in the world around you. Just people blurting out their theories, whether they're substantiated or not. If they haven't gone through the full process, well, there's going to be a lot of challenges there. Right? Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. You're telling me that how that works? Yeah, let me show you these studies or this information that disproves what you're talking about. There's always the anxiety in the mental traits, and here the anxiety of being challenged could result in just making up so-called facts to justify one's opinions. Okay, so that's the kind of the negative side of this. There could also be the blurting out of opinions from the pressure and then not being heard, or droning on and on with details that weren't invited and really boring others. So it is important to follow your strategy and authority before you express out so that it's to the right people at the right time. They're more likely to be engaged then. As with any of the mental processes, they end in the throat. There's no action to be taken here. So even if you've got these theories or you're hearing these theories, the mind is what we call an outer authority, where we can share our understanding and our wisdom with others. But trying to live out the mental thoughts, instead of using your strategy and authority, leads to anger, frustration, bitterness, or disappointment, depending on your type. Next, we have channels being created that are part of the individual integration channels. So I'm going to go through these ones in chronological order because I think it makes more sense then. So coming in on September 26th at 3:53 p.m., going until September 27th at 3:16 a.m. So this is being activated by the moon. Just really a taster of this particular activation, because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for 10 or 11 hours, give or take. Universal time coordinates, it's coming in on September 26th at 9:53 p.m., going until the 27th at 9:16 a.m. The moon's moving into gate 34, the trait of power in the sacral center. The sacral center is that motor that generates life force energy. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 20. This is Uranus position in the throat center. It's the gate or trait of the now. Together, they create the channel of charisma, the design where thoughts must become deeds. This is an individual channel that brings the power to take action and tends to be very busy. Ideally, being self-absorbed in something that you love. When you see someone that's really absorbed in what they love, it can be very charismatic. However, it's gate 57 in the Splenic Centre, the trait of intuitive clarity, that gives the awareness to this channel of what to be busy with. And we don't have that, at least at first. So there can be this being busy with things that may not be of value. Stay tuned though, because on September 26th at 11:55 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, that's the 27th at 5:50 a.m. UTC, we do have Mercury moving into that gate 57 position. And it's going to stay there until September 30th at 11:25 Mountain Daylight Time, 5:25 p.m. UTC. So until the moon moves out of the 34 at 7:40 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time in the 30th, so we've got a few hours there, where we'll also have the 34:57 from the sacral center to the splenic center, which is the channel of power. This is a channel that empowers individuality as a human, and it empowers that intuitive insight, which is an acoustic knowing in the now. So I'm showing that in the small body graph on the lower right here. Plus, we'll have the 5720 connecting the splenic center to the throat center that will be there as long as Mercury's in that gate 57 position. The 5720 is the channel of the brainwave, a design of awareness. It's the place where the intuitive insights that come through the acoustic knowing in the now in gate 57 have access to the throat through gate 20, the trait of the now. The expression that can flow through here is what you know now. You may get a sense through an acoustic knowing of truth and lies. What's safe for you, what's not, what's healthy for you, what's not, and be able to clearly articulate that. Again, energy going up to the throat. There can also be a blurting out of one's knowings without being invited, in which case it's likely to be to the wrong people at the wrong time and then go unheard or just be considered weird. Next, we have on September 28th, coming in at 1:25 p.m., going until October 3rd at 3:05 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in September 28th at 7:25 p.m., going until October 3rd at 9:05 a.m. It's another medium-term channel as Venus moves into gate 64, the trait of confusion in the head center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 47, the trait of oppression and realization in the Ajna center, being activated by the south node of the moon. Together, they create the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity. This is part of the collective abstract circuitry, bringing the mental pressure to make sense by putting the puzzle pieces together to determine how an experience fits into the movie of your life. It's a tough process. It can be confusing at the start. Gate 64 is the gate of confusing, and it takes time to get clarity and to get those ahas, those realizations that can come through the gate 47. As the keynote says, it brings a busy mind and a reminder here that any decisions, once again, should be from your strategy and authority, not from your mind. So here we're amplifying this effect of having a busy mind that we already saw with the 17 going to the 62, that channel of acceptance. It may be a little more difficult to stay grounded and connect to the wisdom of your body. At the same time, if you stay aligned with your strategy and authority, there's the potential for increased awareness and ability to share your realizations, your ahas with others when you're invited in a way that could support them. And you could gain from what comes through others. All right, continuing on here. September 29th at 12:27 a.m. going until 11:35 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in September 29th at 6:27 a.m. going till 5:30 p.m. Well, we still have the channel of the brainwave present, the 5720. The moon is then going to move into gate 10. The trait of behavior of the self and self-love or self-hate in the G center. That's the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. So now we have two additional channels being formed. We have the 5720 we've already talked about, but now with the 10, we've got the 57 to the 10 and we've got the 10 to the 20. So the 57 to the 10 is the channel of perfected form. So we're connecting the Splenic Centre to the G center. This is the design of survival. It's about the individual pressure to enhance the physical form and the forms in our environment. When we do that, it can be very artistic on one hand, but it does also enhance our ability to survive on this earth plane. The 10 to the 20 is the channel of awakening, a design of commitment to higher principles, where the behavior of the self can enhance your survival, and it's also where you express your self-love or your self-hate. So for that period of time when we have these two channels along with that channel of the brainwave, the expression of at the throat is now going to be, I know I'm behaving now, I know I love myself now, or I know I hate myself now. Those are the types of things that can be expressed. You know, not necessarily those specific words, but that's the gist of what's coming through there. All right, next up, we've got coming in September 29th at 11:34 a.m., going until 10:37 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in September 29th at 5:34 p.m., going until September 30th at 4:37 a.m. Our sun's position now, gate 18, that trait of correction in the Splenic Centre, is connecting with its electromagnetic. Gate 58, the trait of the joyous and vitality in the root center, which is being activated by the moon. So this one's not there for long. It's a little taster. Together they create the channel of judgment, a design of insatiability. The joyous, with its energy to correct, meets the knowing of what needs to be corrected. So it's energizing that. So now it's not just knowing about the patterns, but, I don't have any energy to do anything about that. Well, now it's energized. So the channel of judgment, it can really bring through what needs to be corrected. As I mentioned before, it's wanting to better humanity and bringing that energy of correction to whatever you're aware of that needs to be corrected. Reminder again, I know I'm saying a lot, but you need to wait to be asked before offering that criticism. This is critical, right? We talk a lot about like, don't be judgmental and so on. This channel is meant to be judgmental. That's how it operates. For us to survive, we have to judge whether something is healthy for us or not, right? So it's critical and it's meant to be. It is about impersonal sharing, but it is so hard not to take things personally, right? When people are criticizing us. So we do want to make sure that if we're offering the criticism, that the other really wants to hear it, right? It's invited. Or if you just the manifestors, those of you, the few of you that are manifestors, right? You can inform, like, I'd like to tell you about, and the person might say, I don't want to hear it. Well, you're too bad. You're gonna have to back off then, right? So if that was the response and they're a generator, you have to be able to let it go. But if they say, okay, bring it on, well, away you go. You're good to go. All right. The rest of us have to wait to respond in some way. All right. So we have to watch here once again that the criticism isn't being turned into a real like getting down on ourselves and being self-critical, right? There's a kind of healthy self-criticism. Okay, I really could have done that better, and for those of you that have a logic circuitry, perfectionism is going to be part of your essence, always looking to perfect. You have to really watch, aspects that are like going way beyond what really needs to be done there towards perfection. But there's always that like, well, this could be a little bit better. This could be a little bit better, right? That allows you to make that next level of improvement versus being so hard on yourself and getting down and then you're unmotivated, right? Sort of two different ways that can play out. All right, last one. Coming in September 29th at 10:37 p.m., going until the 30th at 9:33 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in September 30th at 4:37 a.m., going until 3:33 p.m. This is another channel being created by the moon, so another little taster. The moon's just going to move next door from the joyous into gate 38, the trait of the fighter and opposition in the root center. It brings the drive to find purpose in life. It's connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 28, the trait of the game player and risk taker in the Splenic Centre, bringing its knowing of what risk to take in life, to find purpose beyond survival. And that's being activated by Mars. Together, they create the channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness, part of the individual circuitry. Stubbornness is not always a bad thing, right? It can really bring this stick-to-itness and struggle through what you know is correct for you to find purpose in your life, no matter what anyone else thinks. This is individual, right? I know what's right for me. Don't interfere with me. Individual circuitry could be like that. However, it does have a side that can sometimes just pick a fight, just being stubborn and oppositional to be stubborn and oppositional. Ultimately, though, it is about that struggle through times of maybe, feeling disconnected from purpose in life to persist in finding it. All right. So just a note that for the short term that this channel is present, we do have that full individual stream of intuition. So starting with the fighter in the root center, going up to the knowing of what risk to take or not, that continues up to the 57, which is getting those intuitive insights. It's a much finer detail there, which can then be expressed out through the throat. So this can take the energy of knowing what risk to take, gaining that intuitive insight, and taking action on that knowing. It's motorized. We have the root now connected up to the throat. So when the root has a pathway to the throat, there's the opportunity for action to be taken. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. Sometimes Pluto, depending on retrogrades, for example, can be activating a certain gate, a certain trait for up to 7 years. So then the mind can grab onto that the not self mind, thinking that it's part of your design when it's really not. And that's going to be quite confusing to the not self mind when that planet finally leaves that activation. Now, while we have a lot of action going on creating channels, there are no changes in lines or gates this cycle until like the very end. We'll see Jupiter change lines, but I'll talk about that next time. It's like right at the end of the cycle. So quite stable here for our long-term transit. So just going to talk about some general themes that I've seen. If you want the details of certain ones, I talked about them in the last one. Okay, so individuality remains a strong theme with gate 22, the gate of grace and the emotional center being activated by that north node of the moon. Gate 20, the gate of the now in the throat being activated by Uranus. Gate 25, the gate of the spirit of the self and universal love in the G center being activated by Neptune. And gate 60, the gate of limitation in the root being activated by Pluto. However, the collective logic circuitry is really going to have the strongest impact this cycle with the Sun-Earth positions both being in logic circuitry, and because the Sun-Earth accounts for 70% of the conditioning field. Plus we have Jupiter creating that channel connection with the Earth. So this pressure to judge, to criticize, to theorize, plan for the future, get organized, that's what's going to be really strong this cycle. We have 4 of the long-term transits sitting in line 2. Line 2 is the line of the hermit and the natural. It projects out the trait, but it can be what we call a paper tiger. Maybe the person has developed that trait or not, right? Maybe they're into that right now or not. So in other words, being able to fulfill on whatever that trait brings may or may not be there in that moment. And line 2s are also very selective. It's not open to everything. And there can be an anti-social quality there because line 2 has to be called out. That's part of its hermit theme. Line 2 is also more internalized. So especially in the first half of this cycle, when the Sun-Earth is moving through the internalized lines 1, 2, and 3, there's going to be a more, into yourself, any social nature that the pressure of this cycle brings, especially with 2 of the other planets, Saturn and Pluto, sitting in line 6, which is, yes, externalizing, more transpersonal, but it's also the role model line, which on one hand is not going to do anything unless it can see it can really move through to completion. And on the other hand, if it is doing something, it's like, I'm doing my thing. You guys can follow me or not. I don't care. All right. So yeah, I think especially the first half of this cycle, you just may feel more kind of like doing your own thing, more internalized. And you may see that in the people around you. There's only a couple of really short periods in the transit field where we have a motor activated. So lots of criticism and planning, pressure to do that without necessarily a lot of action. Of course, that's going to come down to your individual design as well, how many motors you have in your own design. Once we have that channel of abstraction connecting the head center to the Ajna, come in on the 28th, until the end of the cycle, so we've got both it and that channel of acceptance, you may start to see patterns in what you've made sense of that can be organized and expressed. However, once again, remember this is a mental process and not how you make decisions for yourself. There's going to be a strong tendency to be up in your head that may pull you out of attuning to your body. So it's just something to watch for this cycle. Remember, for any of these traits we're talking about in the transit field, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure. It's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it. But whether there's actually anything for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. Sometimes we're just observing how it's playing out. There's nothing for us to do. So back to your own strategy and authority. Don't let this transit field puppet you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the chart, the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, and so on, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. All right, if it's correct for you to be using your energy for planning, organizing with a critical eye, this could be a really supportive cycle for you. Watch that you're not criticizing others who have not asked for your input, and beware of the heightened tendency to be more negatively self-critical this cycle. Expect to hear lots of criticism from others and people talking about what their theories and opinions are. Just do your best not to take it personally. You may find it harder to turn your mind off, especially for those of you that usually have an undefined Ajna center. So try to remember to keep checking in with your body and its wisdom. Okay, if you enjoyed the weather forecast, I always appreciate a like. Put any comments, questions into the comments area. I do try and answer anything that's there. And have a great cycle. May you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.